My husband Daniel's family had never fully accepted me, but I thought after 3 years of marriage, things had finally softened. His mother, Patricia, still made comments about how different I was from the women in their circle, and his sisters treated me like a guest even in my own home. When Daniel suggested we celebrate our anniversary at his parents' lake house with the whole family, I agreed, hoping it might finally bring us closer. I packed the anniversary gift I'd spent months planning and told myself this weekend would be different. We arrived Friday evening to a house already full of laughter and clinking glasses. Patricia greeted Daniel with a long hug and barely looked at me before turning back to the kitchen. I offered to help set the table, but she waved me off, saying the family had it handled, a word she emphasized just enough for me to notice. I stepped outside onto the porch for air, watching rain clouds rolling over the lake, unaware that inside, Patricia was already telling everyone a story about how I'd embarrassed the family at last year's holiday dinner. By the time I came back to the door, it wouldn't open. I knocked, thinking it had simply locked automatically, but through the window I could see Daniel's sister glance at the door, then look away without moving. The rain started falling harder, soaking through my jacket within minutes. I called Daniel's phone, but it went straight to voicemail, the sound of music and laughter faintly audible even through the door. I stood there for nearly 10 minutes, shivering, watching shadows move past the windows while nobody came. I finally saw Patricia walk past the door, and I banged harder, calling her name. She paused, looked directly at me through the glass, and then turned back toward the party without a word. That was the moment I understood this wasn't an accident. I pulled out my phone with numb fingers and dialed the local non-emergency police line, my voice shaking as I explained that I was locked outside in the rain at a family gathering and no one would let me in. The dispatcher told me a unit was nearby and would arrive shortly. 20 minutes later, headlights swept across the driveway as a police car pulled up beside the lake house. 2 officers stepped out, and one of them asked if I was the person who had called about being locked out. I nodded, barely able to speak through my shivering, and explained the situation as calmly as I could. The officer knocked firmly on the door, and this time, it opened almost instantly. Patricia's smile faltered the second she saw the uniform standing beside me on the porch. "Ma'am, is there a reason your daughter-in-law was left outside in this weather?" the officer asked, his tone even but pointed. Patricia stammered something about a misunderstanding, claiming she thought I'd gone for a walk, but the officer's expression made it clear he wasn't convinced. Daniel appeared behind her then, confusion turning to horror as he saw me soaked and trembling on the porch with police standing beside me. "Why didn't anyone answer the door?" he asked, his voice rising, looking around at his sisters, who suddenly found the floor very interesting. The officers stepped back once they confirmed I was safe and had somewhere to go, but not before one of them quietly told me I was welcome to file an incident report if I wanted documentation. I didn't need it filed that night, but knowing it existed gave me a strange sense of steadiness. Daniel wrapped his jacket around my shoulders, apologizing over and over, but I could see something shifting behind his eyes as he looked at his mother, like he was finally seeing a pattern he'd spent years ignoring. Inside, the party had gone completely silent, guests standing frozen with drinks in hand, unsure where to look. Patricia tried to laugh it off, insisting it was all a misunderstanding blown out of proportion, but Daniel wasn't having it. "You knew she was out there," he said flatly, loud enough for the whole room to hear. "You saw her through the window and you kept walking." His youngest sister finally spoke up, admitting quietly that Patricia had told them not to answer if I knocked, that it was meant to teach me a lesson about knowing my place. The room shifted after that. Guests who had laughed along earlier now looked uncomfortable, some quietly gathering their coats and making excuses to leave. Daniel's father, who rarely involved himself in family conflicts, finally spoke up, telling Patricia she owed me more than an apology. Patricia opened her mouth to argue, but for the first time in 3 years, no one in the room backed her up. Even her closest friend at the party looked away, unwilling to defend what she had just watched happen. Daniel drove me to a hotel that night instead of staying at the lake house, wrapping blankets around me in the car while the heater slowly brought feeling back into my hands. He didn't try to make excuses for his mother, and he didn't ask me to forgive her for his sake. Instead, he apologized for every time he had brushed off her comments as harmless, admitting he'd been avoiding the truth about how she treated me. It wasn't the anniversary either of us had planned, but it became the night everything between us actually became honest. In the weeks that followed, Daniel set boundaries with his mother that he had never set before, limiting visits and refusing to attend family events without me included from the start. Patricia called several times, alternating between anger and tearful apologies, But Daniel held firm in a way that surprised even me. His sisters slowly began reaching out separately, distancing themselves from their mother's version of events once they realized how it looked from the outside. The lake house sat empty that Christmas for the first time in years. And for once, that felt like exactly what needed to happen.